Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so glad everybody's here to join us. Thank you for joining us for number 11. This is the 11th of this a series of webinars that we like to call Freshly Certified. My name is Amanda Bolte, and I am the Director of Creative and Brands at Motif Labs. I'm a serial freelancer, although I find less and less time for that nowadays. I'm a mentor and I'm a designer. I'm also a certified RGD, and I currently serve as the vice chair of our certification committee, and I sit on the board of directors. I've also in the past have served as a certification reviewer. So one of the many faces that you may see and when you go through the process of certification. If you have any questions for our presenters today, please use the chat in the control panel, and we'll hold all the questions till the end so the panelists are able to present, but we will have time at the very end for some Q&A as well too. So today's webinar is discussing the RGD certification experience, but mostly around, sorry, I have a slide to switch. I'm rusty. So this is going to be around certification and the certification process, especially around the portfolios. So let me just get into what RGD is, and let me talk a little bit about that first. So RGD members are a community of over 4,000 like-minded professionals, including firm owners, freelancers, managers, educators, and students, with access to professional development, resources, and a vibrant exchange of information, just like what you're seeing today. Through the RGD, Canadian designers exchange ideas, educate and inspire, set professional standards, and build a strong, supportive community dedicated to advocating for the value of graphic design. Of design in general. If you want more information about the RGD, if you're new here, there's resources available for our members or for the larger designer community events. Please visit our website, a brand new website at rgd.ca. So today we're talking about certification. Becoming an RGD is broken down into 4 general steps: filling out an application to see if you're eligible, taking an online test, which is open book, virtual online portfolio review, and the presentation of the RGD results from the RGD. If you want more information about the details on each one of these steps, Heidi Berry holds a certification virtual information session monthly. It's usually around 2 p.m. I didn't check when the next one is, but I know that they come up pretty frequently. It's free to join, and you can ask all the questions that you'd like to have, that you might have about the certification process in general. Heidi is your go-to. She's with you throughout the entire process. Today, our focus is about the fun part, at least in my opinion, is the virtual online portfolio review. And this is where designers get to be designers. Portfolios are presented virtually over 30 minutes to 3 senior design practitioners serving as RGD reviewers, kind of like I am. Candidates present the same 6 pieces submitted as part of the RGD certification application. During the review, you're asked to speak about all the case studies within 30 minutes while going in depth on one of those 6 pieces. So today we're going to actually talk to three very accomplished designers that have just recently gone through the process of becoming certified within the last year or so. And we're going to hear about how they built those case studies and any tips and tricks about the process, and really just debunking any kind of, scary thoughts that you might think that this process is, where it's not. We're really here to celebrate the value of design. So first up, we have Caroline Godbout. Actually, I was going to call her something else that we discussed yesterday, of Trois-Rivières, Quebec. Caroline is a seasoned brand strategist and designer who now specializes with her new studio, Super, in creating immersive brand identities that resonate deeply with audiences across the food, beverage, culture, and hospitality sectors. Caroline, the floor is yours.
Hello. Thank you for not saying that other name.
I liked it though.
Yeah, I like it too. Maybe the people that stay until the very, very end of the questions might get to know.
Okay.
what the other
We'll save
name
it
is.
as a spoiler at the end.
Well, thank you, Amanda. Hi, everybody. I'm Caroline Godbout. Like Amanda said, I'm from the province of Quebec, a very, very, very small town called Trois-Rivières, deep in the woods, far away from every design epicenter, which is exactly what I wanted. I've been a designer for almost 20 years now, mainly in the agency world. I'm also a brand strategist, or I try to be a brand strategist in equal parts with my design practice. I now own a new studio called Super. The project that I'm going to show today was my third case study in the certification process in the portfolio review. I think this case study is especially interesting for people who want to maybe have new ideas on how to build a portfolio, because I built it especially for the portfolio review, mainly with artificial intelligence generative image for mockups, which is a super fun side of this project that maybe can inspire you to try to do it the same way. I will share my screen. There you go. I kept my cover page because something was really interesting to me about it. I looked at the date, and today we are September 19th, and see, I had my portfolio review on September 21st. So almost a year to the day. The case study that I'm showing is called Berthelet Art Gallery. You'll see that it was a process centered around problems. I always use the same analogy, which is the stick in the wheel. I come from the agency Sidley, that maybe some of you know. The first couple of years of my career were me trying to become a designer with Sidley, and at that time, their motto or slogan or philosophy, I guess, was créativité commerciale, which means maybe commercial creativity, trying to find solutions to problems instead of just doing design for design's sake. So I always start with problems, which is not that groundbreaking in our area. But to me, that was especially fun with this portfolio review, because you had to explain your process. So starting with the problems was the actual way to go. And since I think I am a designer that is very solution-based and maybe more about accessibility than being an award-winning designer, which is fine too. I started this specific project with the problems also. So I'm going to go through a couple pages, the same pages that I went through in my portfolio review. Starting with the problem. So this specific project was called Galerie d'Art Berthelet, which is an art gallery here in downtown Trois-Rivières. That was their previous logo, so I wanted to start by discussing it with my reviewers. It's not that it's a particularly dated branding. It was just very, very complicated for a specific kind of people to read and to understand mostly, especially because the word is so French and even hard to pronounce. Berthelet Galerie d'Art in Trois-Rivières. The main public, the main audience being travelers and tourists that mostly come through cruises. So they not only probably never spoke French in their life, but then maybe they don't even speak English. We have a lot of people from China and Japan and Mexico. So all of those languages, I needed to understand how to create something, this rebrand of an art gallery, that would be very, very accessible to people that speak many, many different languages. So that was my first issue. as the first one was being a little bit dated, and the second one being that you need to understand more clearly. The third problem that I needed to solve was that this gallery, this new art gallery in downtown Trois-Rivières, was mostly windows, which meant that it was probably a little too easy to look at everything and then not enter in the space. I liked the fact that you could see the art, but the space is not very large. So I really wanted to make sure that people were invited to step in and talk with the artists, talk with the owners. So that was my third problem that needed a solution with the branding. Then the fourth problem that we established, this one with the client, was that it was a gallery for framed artwork, like mounted artwork. It was not about digital art or sculptures or photography even. It was really, really paint, matter and mounted pieces of art. So I had to keep that in mind in the rebrand also. When I started with the portfolio review, I really wanted to make sure that my reviewers understood that these were the issues I had to work with, so that when I show them the work, they understand clearly what I was trying to do. So first issue, just clean and modernize that logo to make sure that people were at least going to be able to read it, even if they don't understand it. Then needed to be accessible in all languages. I thought that B letter was probably my, well, not the way to go necessarily, but a fun way for me to start the work. Then the duality between revealing and glimpsing through those windows, making sure that people were going to be able to enter and then learn more instead of just revealing everything in the art gallery without having to step in. And then the concept of framed artwork. Those specific key points in my solution-based design were those elements, which brought me to the actual logo type, the first one, which was that B letter. That is very, very large and open, that acts, I kind of always say it looks like a little Polaroid almost. So it modernizes a little bit that old Instax Instagram era of something that's supposed to be very, very traditional, but then it's also a frame and it's also a window. And then when that B is applied to actual art, it makes even more of a focus on certain things, certain pieces, maybe ideas in an oeuvre, artwork, I guess, that were really important or that was cool to note. So that big, beautiful B letter became my frame for the entire branding of Berthollet. Ended up changing a couple things about the name too. I used first a font that's called Pepe Mori from Pangram Pangram, which is a foundry here in Montreal. So very, very local, even in the font. That was very interesting. Decided to go ahead and change a couple things about the way the name was presented. Instead of being Galerie d'Art Berthollet, we just made it the URL. That way, at least if someone is passing through and not spending a lot of time in the gallery, maybe they'll hopefully remember that the URL is berthollet.art, since it's now in the logo. Now I showed a couple things that were interesting in the branding with that new window that we created with the B, and how it could be used, even like I said, to represent certain artists or certain artwork. Here, what's really interesting is that you can go further in the piece and then even talk about the dimensions, the material used, the artist's name, focus on a single piece in the art piece, like so. The problem that was the windows being too revealing brought us to this side of the project that was really, really nice. We had this big, again, B letter, a part of the window now, which meant that all those tourists that maybe don't speak the language, when they were going to ask about what to do in downtown Trois-Rivières, people were going to be able to say, oh, if you love art galleries, go where that big B thing is in the window. So you didn't need to know the language or the name of the art gallery to make sure you found it in the downtown area, which is quite big. So that was a success for us because then it ignited this conversation and then it made people want to peek through and then maybe come into the art gallery. That B became also something really fun to work with, even though it's very, very simple with every piece that we started creating. Here you can see some of the Mid-Journey generative image that I used for the mock-ups because I really wanted to be quick and ready for my portfolio review with this new project that I just launched at the time. So all of these are mock-ups made with Mid-Journey and then Photoshop, which can be a great way to achieve portfolio-ready images quickly. Of course, you see, it was a year ago. I'm way better now. You can check out my Instagram. Those details became really interesting also for a couple things that are coming now in the new year with Berthelet that are more focused on the artwork and the artists, a little bit less on the art gallery now that it's well known in the province. But basically, that's the project. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline. That was phenomenal. I love watching this stuff because I get so inspired and I do a lot of branding and that's where my thing is as well too. So it's just like that makes like it's so inspiring. I'm having some product placement in my own background.
There you go.
Kind of see it.
Well, thank you.
I the one thing I forgot to say too is Carolyn, you've been with the RGD for a year and you sit on our certification committee with us. So, you know, it goes to show like once you become RGD, you can, you can enjoy it as like learning from the resources and stuff like that. You really can get involved. And I wanted to thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I wanted to be part of RGD at first because of that representation outside of my province and that community outside of my province, and being part of the eligibility committee now brought me to become more in contact with other people, French-speaking people that are also RGD. So we're now thinking about really working on that side with RGD of people that speak French or that come from other communities as far as accessibility. So really fun, only 1 year. And like you said earlier, when we talked before, feels like 5.
It feels like 5. It feels like forever. Like it's just such a community outside of, you know, a little town. Like I live in a little town outside of a bigger town, but it's like, yeah, you still kind of get that community without really having to leave your house. You know, I love the storytelling of that. Is that the one piece that you went in depth with on the portfolio presentation? No?
No, that was my 3rd case study. I think that this one we chose as a group for today because the process was maybe funner, especially because of the mock-ups and quickly having to come up with images of a project that is just starting. My bigger project, the one that I went in depth on for the portfolio review, was a huge commercial brand and packaging for a product. But this one was kind of a, like I said, funner way to approach the mock-ups.
I love the storytelling behind it. And you didn't really have to spend a lot of time there, but you really, the storytelling that you did for this project really set up like to the viewer. So if you were, say, going for a portfolio review or an interview or anything like that, it really shows like the viewer that, you know, you don't have to be a geeky design person to actually understand why the decisions were made. So I think that that was really fantastic.
Great. Thank you.
Amazing. I'm sure that we're going to have lots of questions about your use of AI because I love that. Snaps to that. I think that, you know, designers we're scared of it at first, but now we're actually really understanding and seeing how that we can use it as a tool rather than something that's going to do our work for us.
Exactly.
Exactly. Okay. Next up, thank you, Carolyn. We'll have you back to find out what your secret nickname is. Next up, we have Danielle Esquiva. Oh, did I say that right? I hope I did. I hope so. Daniel is a creative director of Daniel Esquiva Designs, a collaborative design studio with over 20 years of experience and continue to learning stuff along the way, you and me both. A print passionate and digital enthusiast, from a corporate identity to a newspaper redesign. He loves creating things with talented people and smart clients who are willing to have fun in the process. And I'd like to know, he's from my hometown. So he's are you in London or are you in GTA?
London, yeah.
Yes. Okay. I'm in Camoga. I'm outside of London. So represent London. Love to see that. Daniel, the floor is yours. I can't wait to see.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Amanda and RGD, for the invitation. I hope, let me see, just, you can see the screen?
Perfect, yeah. Perfect, yeah.
Perfect. So, as I said, thank you for the invitation. My name is Daniel Esqueda. This is the second project I did for the certification I did last year. I think it was October. I don't remember exactly the date, but I think it was October. So it's not even a year. So this is the second project I was going to show. And there's a lot of slides. I'll try to do it very practical, very fast. So the first thing is that sometimes I say we because a good friend of mine who was the editor of that project, he was all the editing, and I was working for all the design and all the photography and creative direction. So of course, when you do collaborative work, sometimes you get involved and you take editorial decisions, and maybe the other guy might take some suggestions on design, but basically all the work on design and photography was on my side on decisions. So the context, this is a book for a restaurant called El Bajío in Mexico City, which was very important because they were turning 50 years. The restaurant the first restaurant was built in October 18, 1972. So it was becoming a 50-year restaurant. So they wanted more than just a cooking book. The idea of that was, it's not a cooking book. We had recipes and all that in the book, but it was more a legacy and show the book tried to capture the legacy and also the journey that they have been taking for these 50 years. The owner, called Titita, that's how all the friends call her, has been very renowned chef worldwide. So this was a book about showing the story and also the legacy to leave to their sons, niece, and everyone around to know the story. This is Titita. Right now they have 19 restaurants. When we did the book, they have 18 restaurants, and they were about to open Madrid, which I have the opportunity to visit 2 weeks ago. And you can go to El Bajío in Mexico City, and you can go to El Bajío in Madrid, and the recipes and the taste is exactly the same. So one of the things was they wanted to show what their journey have been in Mexico and the journey that they were taking into it. If you go to, one of the good things we know is we knew the restaurant, we knew the amazing cuisine they have. We have known them for a couple of years. So this is more or less, they have, when you go into a restaurant, there's a lot of Mexican art all the way. And making this book I knew I had to work with a client of, they have a lot of assets already done. By the time I got involved into the designing the book, they had already done their brand identity, which was previously designed by Gaby Huerta Goldblatt, a Mexican designer. So I had to go deep into knowing what the creation of the logo was, what did they meant, the colors, all the structure. And also, we didn't have a lot of time to do the book, so I had to work, what was the picture-driven idea, what was the concept of it. Of course, we have a couple of meetings with the owner, family members, CEO, some of stakeholders. Of course, that meeting gave us the story of where the book wanted to go. As I said before, it was not a cooking book. I can tell you more or less 20% of the book had cooking recipes, but all of the rest told the story they wanted to tell about the restaurant. So we got into the branding that I was already built in some way, the basic colors, secondary colors. They have already done some icons for this 50th anniversary. So we took those icons and said, okay, let's do kind of a sticker so we can use them as part of the branding throughout the book and through all the chapters. I had to work with the editor to see what was going to be the concept behind the book, the chapters, what was most important, what was less important. And from that, these are just explorations, layouts I started doing, getting understanding of the traditions. We use mock-ups, I use a lot of photography that I had just in stock, because I asked the restaurant owners and all that to give me all the reference and all the images they had. Fortunately, one of the photographers they used to have is the one that I'd hired again to take some of the pictures we needed still to produce. So it would have the same kind of a style from the pictures we already had. So that's one of the parts I wanted to work with. I started working with layouts. I was born as an editorial designer, working for newspapers and magazines and all that. So I started working with type, defining what kind of type. I had already, like I told, the colors in it, the color palette. I added a little bit more colors. So I started working with the layouts, see how it will represent all the stories, how it would look from the first layouts, just fast mock-ups, just to see if the picture will work, how it will do all the layouts around. If the layout, also, I wanted to do a layout that could work for fast stories or more deep into driven stories. Then I work with a lot of, because El Bajío has a lot of art, Mexican art in it. I didn't just want to use the original art. I wanted to go and say, okay, let's do some pattern designs based on some textiles and some work that they had exposed in the restaurant. So these are just initial concepts I was doing to see how it will work, some experiments, knowing that I might have to use the identity at last. So, but we're not to do. So I had to do all these small patterns, and it was like the table when you have the plate, and then you have the heart because of the passion. So I try to conceptualize all the patterns I was doing for the idea. Then, of course, I use the icons and make kind of this plate is not real. I made it with Photoshop, but it looked so great that actually they did some plates for the anniversary. And so I started working on some concepts until I knew the idea of this pattern that was made before will work better because it was already done. That brand was already out for some clients, so it was working. I had just to work making it big, because the word called años, which is years, it couldn't be small. I had to be big. So I had to decide how to blow it out, and the cover would look good in all that, and use the colors and all that. So this is more or less. So one of the things, gathering all the information, visual information for this, really it's one of the hard things when you design something that you have to work something new and something that it's part of your legacy photography, you know that, which a lot of clients have and a lot of clients don't have. So you have to work out the best of every part, try to work with the client and try to do a style, similar style with new photography that convey the photography that they used to have or that we were working with. So the book was very photo driven. We have pictures from outside of some restaurants. But as the story conveys, the story of Titita, which is the chef and the owner, came from Veracruz. So we have to do a storytelling also through photography. So this was very important. It was the second spread of the book because she comes from Veracruz. And these are two images that perfectly represent Veracruz, the kind of dresses and all the traditional dancing and all the plantains that are in Veracruz, which are very specific to the region. So we try to do all that through photography and through text, of course. I wanted to do really quotes that look very, very good, big one quotes. I use very highly colors, very Mexican colors that they had in their palette, and we added a couple of more. These kind of pictures inside the restaurant. So I try to drive the book through stories, through pictures, and basically through quotes that will tell all that story with the concept I was doing with the book. The solution was after the editorial concept was created to tell the story of the family, the business, and it was divided basically on 5 chapters. You can see it on 6 chapters actually. And one of the important things that they wanted recipes, but they wanted the recipes to be on the back part almost, and they wanted to bring the story today with the quotes of their family, friends. So the book basically is the story holder of the legacy for future generations of the family. So we have long text. Of course, we have interview with Titita and other family members. We did some. I did some photo collages like this that with images the client gave us, and how we started. This illustration was very fun because this is I hired an illustrator called Federico Jordan, which is very good, is very iconic. So I wanted to make him represent each and every one of the restaurants in an icon from Mexico City. So he would, I worked with him, and the client was very delighted with this work. As I told you, one of the things in the recipes that we had, the problem was that some recipes were very short and some recipes were very large. So I didn't want to put recipe and picture because what would happen was that some recipes might not have picture because they were too big. So I decided to go first. I put 1-page images of the recipes, and then I go to the recipes, even though we can have blank spaces without a problem, just controlling it with the type. And this is our kind of the images. So it wouldn't have to one big picture, one little picture. All the recipes have a picture, 1-page or 2-page picture, and then the recipes will go after that, divided into 5 kind of mini sections. And then one of the important things they wanted to have is that for them, these 50 years were not possible to get there if it wasn't for the people working for them. So the last part of the book is like 10 pages dedicated to one big portrait of all the people working in each of the restaurants. So we were at that time 19 images. So that was the way we closed the book, showing that it's part of the legacy. It's not just the owners, but it's the people behind working in the restaurant that has done really the story behind each of the books. I decided to make a special edition. They gave away like half the production where it was made. So I decided to do special case. I did that in Michoacan with a special person, artisan. And so we did 100 books in this case that was very special for the client. Sorry if I'm going too fast or too slow, but so one of the things I have challenged, and I think it's part of the tips I'm going to give you here is start your process now. Don't overthink it, just do it. I remember I was thinking of doing it. Of course, I wanted to do the certification. I cannot lie. I was afraid to see if I would pass the portfolio certification or not, if I had the experience enough to do it. So one day I said, okay, I'm going to dedicate some time each day. Don't overthink it, and just started to do it. And that's the way I had to do it. Tell your story through your portfolio. Get inspired by your work. We usually see other people work to get involved and to get inspired. You can get inspired by your own work also. Talk about the challenges of the project, from the small things like I told you that I had to work with a lot of images already produced, so I had to work with them and work with the photographer to make the similar style so they won't look like the old pictures and the new pictures, so kind of set a tone in the middle so the picture will look good. Of course, the certification can be challenging, but I can tell that being part of the RGD community has been rewarding so far, and I'm just about to have a year with it. And one of the things that's important, which I recommend, is when you do the certification and when you do the portfolio, think of it as a client's project. Set a time to make it happen. Because if not, designer says, oh, I have a client, I have a work to do. And so you stop doing your things and the portfolio to do your client work, which is good. But think of it as your own, you will become your own client to make the certification portfolio. So you can give space every day or every week to build your portfolio and build and study for the exams and all that. So basically, these are some tips I would recommend for the future certification members that would like to apply. And that's basically all.
Daniel, that was fantastic. I actually took a screen capture of this slide because it makes my heart like so happy. I'm gonna like recruit you for our certification committee. So I'm just like sending that.
I'll send it to you.
I'll send that out to the vibes. I think I won't talk very long because I want to give Jessica enough time to show her work as well too. But there's a couple things that you mentioned right off the top that I just wanted to highlight was the we versus I. I think as designers, we like to give credit where credit's due, and we say that we're working as part of a team. During this process, it's okay to be selfish. You're supposed to say what you did is in your role as your part of the design project. And you can say I more, whereas designers, we don't do that. We like to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. I know. I do it, and I say we. I say like, no, it was not we. It was me only to do it. But it's kind of a, I mean, because making a book like this, there's so many people involved. I mean, the design part and the photography and all the photo editing and illustration decisions are mine, but still, it's just one part of the big process that, in this case, that process started 50 years ago. So just to ask one picture and to be able to make a collage and asking, and the images took like a month to get them into the studio, and I can make the collage and all that. So I understand perfectly, and it takes time and it takes adjustment to say I. It's like yes.
I know.
I remember when I was doing the certification, I was we, no, sorry, I, and then we, no, sorry, I.
And I think that the thing that I wrote down here, I think is really important with Caroline's project and as well as yours, that design really translates language. Whereas like, you know, I don't speak Spanish and I was like, I didn't understand a word that was in there, but I didn't need to get the essence of what was being communicated. And I think that was really beautiful.
Thank
So.
you.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll try and bring you up at the end. Depends on how long we go with Jessica, but we have one more portfolio to share with you guys today. So we were in Quebec, we were in Ontario, and now we're going to go all the way west coast to Surrey, BC. Jessica Luch is a creative director whose experience in design, art direction, and photography informs her eclectic approach to her work. I love that. She is able to draw on many artistic disciplines and areas of deep interest to create distinct, meaningful work for brands large and small. Jessica, I can't wait to hear about your work.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that lovely intro. Let me share my screen. Of course, I just realized I shared it wrong because I didn't add sound. Let me reshare. Share sound. There we go. Okay, making sure that everyone can see this. Amazing. Okay, yeah, so today I'm going to be walking you through my International Women's Day project. And I think it's going to be especially interesting for the folks here because this isn't really a traditional design project. It's, it's event design, it's marketing design, and it's a live action film. However, I still chose to use this as my sort of hero piece in the certification process because every creative decision, as you'll see, was driven by design sensibility. So I'm a graphic designer by trade and by heart, and it flows into every single decision that I make, regardless if it's living in the design specific world or not. So this project, I was a creative director. I'm a creative director on my day-to-day. And this project began when our leadership team at our agency, Thinking Box, approached myself and another female film director and asked us to pitch several ideas for ways that our agency could approach International Women's Day. And the main goal that we kind of came to was that we wanted to create an event, and we also wanted to make a feature film. Or not a feature film, sorry, just a short film. And so the project's scope was an in-person event, an internal live stream, which came with its own level of difficulties, one-on-one mentorship sessions, interviews through that event, sort of a POV video piece, like how we wanted to comment on International Women's Day, and then ways to involve the team. So interviews with our team internally. We wrote 2 long-form articles, and then we had lots and lots of marketing promoting all of this. And really, this came about because obviously I'm a woman myself, and I can really say that when I experience International Women's Day, things tend to feel quite insincere across the board. Everything sort of feels pink washed, and we really just wanted to take a very different approach. And it was really cool because being a creative director, I was able to really define the project, what that looked like, define the team that was involved, define these lifts, and really make sure that we had a well-rounded sort of feeling day. And the other fun piece was that we didn't really have too big of a budget, so we got a bit crafty with how we approached this. So we started by creating a manifesto, and we used that to be sort of our creative brief, and we stemmed every single design decision and creative decision from this. So I'll read it for you now. Let's acknowledge the relentless struggle, the one that is at the crossroads of our identity, the one where women navigate a labyrinth of both explicit and implicit expectations. Let's acknowledge the relentless barrage of conflicting directives. Be this way, but not like that. Act like that, but not like this. In spite of it, let's celebrate that in the face of such duality and seemingly insurmountable challenges, women persistently rise above, conquering adversity time and time again. In spite of the duality, women rise, which became our theme both creatively and thematically throughout these pieces. Now, this is a quote from one of the long-form articles that my writer on my team wrote, but I think it was very helpful to sort of understand where the creative was coming from. So if you've experienced marginalization of any form, you may also have experienced a muting of self, a rounding of edges so that you might fit into the box other people are comfortable putting you in. But this conflict can cause a fissure between those characteristics you deem beneficial and those you deem as less so. So where does this conflict come from? And why do we find ourselves opting for what is palatable versus what is true to ourselves? We spoke to a few members of the team to see how this opposition shows up in their lives and their careers. And we did this initially internally, and then we brought it out to our event, which is what I'll speak to now. So I'll break down how we approach this. And I think what you'll see is that this feels like sort of a design exercise, even though the design outputs were really just marketing pieces at the end. But the approach for the event itself was that we wanted to focus on providing women with tools to become their own advocates. And the goal was to arm viewers and attendees with the tools to apply to their own experiences in the workforces and in their lives. And this is pulled directly from the creative brief that we wrote ourselves. So we basically put this slide together, and it's an in-depth look at how women show up in their careers, how they face duality, and how self-advocacy plays a role in their success. And the main focus with this is that we didn't want to sort of have this be a doom and gloom event. Rather, we really wanted to focus in on our panelists' why they lean into that duality. And so the question themes was really focused on their careers. And for context, I wrote all of the questions that we asked our panelists. That's why I'm including it in here as well. The tools in advocacy and sort of what worked for these women, how did they rise above, and then the spotlight on other women. So bringing women up as other women rise. So other women that are important to these women, organizations, and initiatives. And here's some photos of the event itself. As you can see, it ended up being, a pretty packed event, which was awesome. We sold out, we had tons of folks joining, and really felt like we started to create a bit of a community. Now onto the actual design sort of output. So the video. So this very much was a collaboration between our copywriter, Laura Bell, myself, and Bronwyn, who was our director as well. So I went back in when I was building this certification to really make sure that I included a lot of the behind the scenes creative that was infused. And this was the actual mood board that we created going into the film piece. And, I think a lot of the things that really stood out for us, there we go, was sort of the dynamic storytelling, the camera movements. We loved Brit that came across, particularly in the far right video there. And again, these are literally copy and pasted from our creative process. One of the things that we love so much about the feel of these three inspirations was just the sort of contemporary feel of it. And if I can get to the next slide, I'll sort of walk us through how we came up with this story arc, and then I'll show you the video, and I'm hoping that you can kind of see how these visuals were translated through. So when we wrote the script, again, this is not specifically sort of design related, but this is something that as a creative director, I was very much lucky enough to work on. And what's interesting is when you get into script writing and live action as a graphic designer, I think you'll see a lot of the ways that we approach our creative briefs from a design perspective and through design thinking really start to come through, even though you're not necessarily in graphic design. So we went through a 3-act structure. We started with discovery, then we went on to reflection, and then landed on celebration. And hopefully this works, and I can play the piece for you now, and you can see how all of those creative decisions came to life, and then I'll break down each individual creative decision that we made.
Growing up being gay and Jewish at the same time, I had a hard time navigating, okay, how do I negotiate these intersecting identities? The
duality for me is definitely in being a woman of color and working in sport. I come from a first-generation immigrant family. I felt like I couldn't live up to the expectations and follow my passion.
What it means to be a woman in the West versus a woman in the East is completely different. My mom used to call me the devil's child because I was everything as a young Indian woman that I was not supposed to be.
My mom would say things to me like, don't walk that way. It's manly. Sit up this way.
Not to talk back, not to ask questions. Life would be so much easier. If I just shut my mouth more. I was hearing that my entire life for as long